G'day people, I'm Sharon and welcome. Today I am releasing my new design set. It is fully compatible with the previous design sets. However, it's alphanumeric. So you get 26 letters A to Z, all the digits 0 to 9, 5 punctuation marks, which is an apostrophe, an exclamation mark, a hyphen, period and a question mark, plus one square that is completely stippling and one square that is just the square. So you can put any other design you want in that. The designs are available in all the formats and they're available from my website, which is linked below. They are for use with Quilt As You Go. For this 1 week from the point where I release them, they will cost $20 for the set. That set includes all those designs I've just mentioned, each in 5 sizes. So there's 14, 17, 20, 23 and 28 centimetre sizes. Essentially that means you get 215 designs for $20 US. How many of them you can use will depend on your machine, as in how big of a design it can stitch out, but you get the whole lot in the format you choose. After that, the design set will become $25 US for the entire set. I'm now going to do a tutorial on how to stitch out my design. In this particular case, I'm using a Janome CM17. If you're not interested in that particular machine, please skip ahead to the timestamp indicated, and then you won't have to watch so many of the things that you're not interested in. I'm going to begin by telling the machine to go into embroidery mode, and in this particular one I go to the house. Embroidery mode is down here, and I click on the area where the text is. Switch to embroidery mode. Please make sure the proper presser foot is attached. So let's make sure the proper presser foot is attached, and in this case it's this one. It's the P foot. It's silver, as it is on some of the Janome machines. In some it's a clear plastic foot, but it doesn't connect to the feed dogs, and it basically looks something like that. It's got a P on it somewhere. In this case it's down here. The other thing I am going to need to do is to put the other plate on it and to change the threads. So let's get going on those things. To change the presser foot, use a screwdriver to loosen it, unscrew it and twist it around to the back. So I've taken off the entire ankle and the foot. From the back, twist it around, screw it in and then tighten it with your screwdriver. Make sure it's in there firmly. Okay. The next thing I need to do is change the needle plate, and I'm going to change the one that's on there at the moment, which has a single very wide hole for the needle to go down into, to this one which has 3 holes. The next thing I need to do is lock the machine, and I do it by pressing on the key. We now have a lock, and we have this piece which I have shown you before, and that is to open the needle plate. Warning, needle plate not secured. It's just gone back down. The other place that I can open the needle plate is up next to the lock on the front screen. When it's up, take it out. This is the one that I want to put in. I place it into the left and then put it into place. I can now unlock the machine, or I could if I wasn't about to thread it. So I'm going to thread it. I'm using King Tut Arabian Nights thread on the top. It is a sewing machine quilting thread, 100% cotton, very nice quality thread. Do not use hand quilting threads in your sewing machine, they do not work. In the bobbin I'm using a Raysant thread to match. It will do the job just fine because I want it to look like proper quilting, not like embroidery. Now that the machine is completely threaded, I can come up next to the lock. There is a key and we're now unlocked. We begin hooping up I'm only putting calico in. If I'm lucky, I should be able to just get that in. Because it's a large hoop, and it is, this is about 12 inches wide, that's not super stable. It can move around a bit. So I'm going to use the magnets, and you put them from the inside to the outside. Next, I am laying in my main fabric, or my main wadding. You can use whatever kind you like. I've got a wool wadding. If you have pieces of wadding that you want to put around for the puffy bit, put your pieces around here. Make sure they join up together, but put them around, and then put a single piece over the top. And that single piece will make sure that while you're sewing things together, the hoop of the machine is not going to get stuck on it. In this case, I'm just going to put 2 layers of wadding in the middle, and I'm going to take this to my machine and stitch out the first part of the design. To find my design, I go to the file with an arrow coming out of it. I'm already on my USB. I want the 28 centimetre alphanumerics because these are the biggest ones, and these are the ones that I can do in this machine. I'm going to choose one with a section on the inside so that I can show you that, and we will do number 9. You'll notice that when I come to the machine, the foot can easily get over the edge, but it's certainly not going to go over the magnets. So be aware where your magnets are. I need to get this part into this part and then slide it forward until it clicks. I am now ready to start sewing, but I need to be careful. At this point, none of those layers of wadding are actually attached to the fabric. The blue colourway of thread, the first thread, is going to hold them down so that the excess wadding can be cut away. Watch how I do it. My machine is set to 1 stitch stop, so I'm going to hold the needle thread and press the button. It stops and allows me to pull the bobbin thread to the top. I'm going to cut those threads off. This second part is also part of the first colour. Because I've got 1 stitch stop on, the machine will always stop before it begins a new section. That is the end of the first colour, and the machine has now moved on to the second colour, but I need to go and do some cutting before I let it start that next colour. To get the hoop out, I need to lift and then pull it towards me gently, making sure that I don't have the foot and the magnet coming together. From the time you start sewing one of these designs through until the finish, you don't get anything actually out of the hoop. Move the hoop out of the machine, do the trimming, and then put it all back into the machine. But don't move that fabric out of the hoop. I'm now going to cut off those 2 extra layers at the top and just leave the bottom layer of wadding. This is the bit that is going to make the design puff up. Cutting these pieces out will be much more difficult on a smaller square. I'm right-handed, so I tend to work with my scissors laying down sort of flat and going anti-clockwise around a design. You'll notice that's not perfect, and it doesn't matter. This won't show up in the finished design. I can take that out of the middle if I want to. It will give a slightly better effect, but most of the time it doesn't make a great deal of difference because there's going to be stippling inside there anyway, which will hold that down. The thicker this is, the more it's going to puff up. So lofty wadding will give you a better effect. Now back to the machine. The machine is ready to sew the second colour, which in the case of my designs is red. But I need to get this firmly attached again. That little click at the end is important. Lay the top fabric in, covering everything, and we're going to start it sewing again, remembering that it is doing the one stitch stop. So holding my needle thread, when I pull on that, it pulls the bobbin thread up to the top and I can pull it out of the way. I am currently using this opportunity to make sure that top fabric is nice and smooth. It doesn't have any big bubbles and things in it. The purpose of that square in all of my designs is to hold the top fabric and the wadding and the backing all together. They're now secure. I don't need to worry about it anymore. The machine stopped because there was a break in the stitching and it needs to do another one stitch stop. We're now at the very final part. It's going to do most of the stippling on the design. Once I've got it started, I'm going to set it to go faster. So I've removed the excess thread here. Next to my start stop button is a slider that will make things work more quickly. So I'm going to slide it all the way to the right, which means that it's going to do 1200 stitches per minute. I will probably also speed up the video. release over here. And I need to pull it towards me, but I need to make sure I do not get myself caught on the magnet. Now that the stitching is complete, I'm going to cut off that extra little bit of thread, remove my magnets, and they just come out by moving them to the outside, and then I can pop it out of the hoop. If you're having trouble getting things out of these really big hoops, they've got a lever here that you can open that will make everything a lot easier. The levers are on both sides. Now I need to cut this design, and I didn't actually leave a lot of space with my wadding around the edge, so I'm going to cut it at slightly under 1/4 of an inch. Even if you can't see that that's puffy, maybe you can see that the ruler won't sit flat on it. When I'm cutting them, I do them for convenience, because I'm going to cover any joins with a 1/2 inch tape. I make this a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch, and that way 2 of them side by side will be properly covered by the tape. There is the front, and there's the back. This design bit here is the first piece that was stitched out by the machine, and it's in quite a long stitch. It is reasonably easy to get out, as is this larger circle. You'll notice that there are some places where the machine actually did a knot, and you can see where it's cut off. There is nothing to stop me from trimming those pieces off. If I unpick this, and I wouldn't have to do an awful lot of work because they were very long stitches, and I specifically set them so that they don't knot at the ends, so that would come out, but I would need to trim off this one here and this one. The reason we haven't ended up with lots of nests on the back of the design is because of that one stitch stop. Anywhere it would have made a nest, like here, it didn't have the thread to do it. So one stitch stop helps to prevent nests. And here is my final design, ready to be put quilt as you go into a quilt, or potentially made into separate pieces for a banner. I could put a name in a quilt, or a date in a quilt, or separate bits, have them hanging to say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, whatever else you want to put up. And that would just be binding the edges like you would with a quilt. One of the interesting things about that one stitch stop, and it is a bit of a pain to do as you're sewing because it does make things take longer, is that the back basically looks as good as the front. I've taken out the original stitching that held the extra layers of wadding down, so you can no longer see that on the back, and pretty much back and front looks the same. I hope you've learned something about how you can use your embroidery machine to do quilting, and if you follow on over here, hopefully you will find your way to my How to Do Quilt As You Go that I developed as a super easy way to put these together. See you next time.